So today I am talking about capture devices, more specifically the Game Capture HD here from Elgato. Now, you guys may or may not remember this, but it was about a year ago that I picked this thing up, back when I was still in the hospital when this whole health nightmare first started. And so I'm just getting around to really familiarizing myself with this and actually use it. And so I played a couple of songs in Rock Band, recorded a video, and uploaded it. And from that video, I was literally inundated with a single message from Mr. Tightwhite wanting to know how it works, how to set it up, just basic information on it, because I think he's kind of wanting to move up to a capture device. Because right now, like a lot of channels, he records gameplay footage just by pointing his camera at the TV and recording. And you know, it's free and it's easy. That's how I first started recording gameplay footage when I was doing it on the channel. And I decided to move up to a capture device because even though I spent all this time painstakingly trying to get it framed in just perfect and doing lighting to make it look better, it still looked like crap, to be honest. So I ended up getting a capture device, and I assume that's kind of what point he's at in debating of whether he wants to move up to one or not, and is just trying to get some information. So I told him, hell yeah, I'll make a video on it, so here we are. Now, before I talk more about the Game Capture HD here, I want to show you guys what I was using before that. And that is these cheap Chinese USB capture devices. Now, I'm not trying to be racist by calling them cheap in Chinese in the same sentence. I'm not trying to stereotype. They literally are manufactured, designed, and sold in China. That's where I bought them from. And they are cheap. They were 20 bucks a piece. Now, you might be thinking, well, maybe they're just inexpensive, right? Well, in order for them to be called inexpensive, at the very least, they would have to function right out of the box. But they don't. The Windows 7 drivers that were supplied with these don't work. And the ones on the website are the same ones that came on the CD. So I could not get these to work with the manufacturer's drivers. Now, I'm a computer guy. It's not because I couldn't figure it out. It's because they don't work. And, you know, that right there off the bat makes them cheap. They'd be inexpensive if they worked right out of the box, because they actually do work rather well. Once I was able to track down some drivers by searching around for like 2.5 hours, I found some drivers that worked from another manufacturer, because we all know China likes to knock stuff off. So there's a lot of these devices that are the exact same devices, they're just branded differently from different manufacturers. So I was able to finally get these working, but they don't include their own capture software. You have to supply your own, which, I mean, for 20 bucks, I can't really complain. You know, I can't expect them to come with capture software. But unfortunately, I wasn't able to find anything free that worked well. I ended up using a video editor that I was moving up to that had a section that does capture, and it worked rather well. And these actually did not work that bad. So if you have a good editor with capturing software and you're willing to put in the time to find drivers for these, they're not half bad. Now this one captures component and S-video, and this one captures composite and S-video. So I was happy using these until I got to the point where I decided I want to capture things from HDMI sources. Well, unfortunately, there's no HDMI on these, so they're out. So I started doing a search and started looking at different capture devices, and there were a few that were, you know, the more popular ones. And I came to the conclusion that I wanted to get the Elgato because not only did it do HDMI, but I wanted one to replace those that could capture S-video, component, and composite, so I could capture all of my consoles with just one single capture device. So, with that, let's move on to the actual Elgato itself and talk about what comes with it if you're planning on buying your own. Now, let's talk about the actual Game Capture HD itself. Now, if you're thinking about picking one of these up, you could probably find one for between 120 and 130 new. If you're looking to save some scratch, you could probably head over to eBay and find one used but complete in the box for between $80 to $90. Now, if you're going to do that, you should be aware of what you should see in the package before you pay a premium price. Obviously, it should include the capture device, but it should also come with a bunch of cables as well. First of which being this USB cable, which not only transmits data from the capture device to your computer, but it's used to power the device as well. Now, if it's not there, don't freak out because it's just a regular USB cable with a USB mini at one end and a regular USB at the other. So if it's not there, you could really replace it from any place that sells USB cables. However, if you're spending $80 to $90, it really should be in there because it will not work without it. So next up, they include just a regular old HDMI cable, which is kind of nice. I didn't open this one because I have a ton of them sitting around, but now this cable is imperative if you want to capture footage from your PlayStation 3, and it's the PlayStation 3 adapter. And why can't you capture through the HDMI? Unfortunately, Sony is a bunch of assholes and encrypt it so that it won't work for copy protection. Something they came up with the advent of Blu-ray. But anyways, so this is the only way for that to work, and you have to plug this into the AV out, and it basically uses a component signal to go to the capture device here. Now, that wouldn't be that big of a problem if I could just leave it hooked up and just have this hanging out the back and connect it. But to switch between HDMI output and component output on the PS3 is likened to pouring fire ants on your crotch. It sucks. It's a 5 to 10 minute endeavor just to switch between the two. It's just asinine. Why would you do that? Now, because of that, I have really no interest in capturing footage from my PlayStation 3. But if you do, this is the only way you're going to do it. This needs to be in there. But if it's not, you can purchase another one from the Elgato store for, I think, $10. But anyways, the last one that was imperative for me that seemed to be missing from a lot of them was this adapter right here. It seems like people just don't care and either lose these or throw them out. And this is a component adapter. So obviously you can capture consoles like the original Xbox, the GameCube if you have hundreds of dollars to buy the cable for that, and the PS2. And even older consoles are now being able to be connected through components, so that's really nice. But the other cool thing is you can use the same adapter to capture composite by hooking your video lead into the red here, and then just plugging your audio like you normally would here. You can now capture composite. I thought that was really cool of them to go to the effort to do that with this device. Now, keep in mind, there is a bigger brother to this one, the HD60, which will not do that. It can only capture from HDMI. So keep that in mind when you're looking at them if you want to capture, from older consoles. But what about consoles that output an S-video? Well, you kind of have to buy a separate adapter for that, which is about $10 from the Elgato store. So I had to pick one of those up so I could get an S-video header. But now I can capture every single one of my consoles with one capture device. And so I bought an extra one of these, so that way I can have all of the headers hooked up to each one of my video switches. And I don't have to fiddle around with cables. I just pull this out, plug it into the capture, and then plug it into the computer, and I'm off and going. So it makes things very convenient. Now, one thing you may want to consider getting as well on top of this, if you're going to have the capture device far away from your computer, you can just use one of these USB extension cables. This one's just an Amazon Basics brand, which was like $4 or $5, obviously on Amazon. But this can make things a lot easier for you if that's an issue. Now, so that's what you should expect to see in the package if you're paying $80 to $90. So just keep that in mind when you guys are going to purchase. Now let's talk about how to actually hook the thing up, and then we'll move on to using the software on the computer side of things. So now let's actually talk about how to hook this thing up and get it working. Now, if you guys have ever connected the console to anything, really, you can figure this out. It's very straightforward and simple. On either end of the device, you just have a couple of connections here. On this end, you have your analog input for your different adapters here and your HDMI input. On the other end, you have your HDMI output and your USB port. And how I hook this thing up is I have switches for all of my systems, whether they be old or new. So I have an HDMI switch on all of my modern consoles that support HDMI, and from that switch it goes into my receiver, and from my receiver to my TV. So to hook this thing up, I just have that switch mounted on the back side of my entertainment center up towards the top. So you can't see it, but it can be easily accessed. And I just stick my laptop next to my TV there, and then I unplug the output from that switch and plug it into the input on the Game Capture HD. And then from the output, I plug another HDMI cable into that and then plug it back into the switch so it can be displayed on the TV. With the older systems, like I told you guys before, I have these adapters here, and I purchased an extra component one because I have 2 component switches. And I have these hooked up all the time using a bunch of splitters to the switches, so these just hang down behind the entertainment center, and I can just pull them up and plug them into the Game Capture HD and be off and going. So that's pretty much how I connect it. There may be easier ways for you. If you guys want me to go into a tutorial on how I have everything connected through these switches, I'd be happy to make another video on that for you guys. But anyway, that's pretty much it for the hardware side of things. Let's move over to the software side, and let me jump on my laptop and show you how to actually capture some footage. So here I am on my laptop, and I have the Game Capture HD software up and running. Now, before I go any further, I just want to let you guys know that the software does not actually come bundled with the Game Capture HD, whether you buy it new or used or whatever. So if you guys pick this up and you don't find any software inside, don't worry. That's normal, that's just how it comes. You just need to go to Elgato's website to download it. So just a heads up for you there. I'm sure they do that as just a cost-cutting measure, something that happens more and more these days. But anyways, so it has a pretty basic layout here. Off to the left, you obviously have your video preview, and down below you have your controls, which are pretty simple. Now off to the right, you have different sections of the software here, so let's go over those real quick. Up top here, you have your device information. So when the Elgato's plugged in, it will show that it's plugged in. It'll show whether it's initializing or detecting signal. It'll show what resolution is being detected, how many frames per second, that sort of thing. And it'll also let you change your settings from here, which I'll go over in a minute. Below that is your controls for your live streaming, so if you're streaming to Twitch or YouTube or whatever, you'd set that up here. I've never used it because I don't live stream, but if you want to, it's right here for you, which is nice. Below is your in-game audio. Below that, just your controls for your live commentary, so to set up your microphone, your levels, whatever. Below is an actual sound capture feature, which I also don't use because if I do any sort of sound capture, I usually just use Audacity for that. So, and then below that, you can set up tags for your video or whatever. But now also I wanted to show you real quick, it has a pretty basic editor built in. So if you have no editing software at all, and you're just using YouTube to edit your videos, this may be a decent alternative for that. I've never used it because I have a full-fledged editor that I use, so, but it's kind of nice that it's in there. And also you can change the program settings of where it saves your files and whatnot, which I'll show you once I actually do a capture. But I mean, you can change a lot of stuff here, and you're sharing to whatever different social media apps you like to use, how it controls updates, hotkeys, some advanced stuff. It's pretty basic here. You guys can figure out how to set that up once you do. But now let's go ahead and come back here, and I'll show you how to actually set the device up and use it. Now, one last thing before I get started here, and it's just a warning that there is a delay between what you see on the video preview and what you see on the TV. Now, that being said, I have not perceived any delay or lag between any controller input and what happens on the TV. So I don't see any lag in that regards, but there is a delay in the capture. So if you're planning on just hooking this up and trying to capture and control using the video preview, that's probably not going to work well for you. So just a heads up. So I'm going to have to go ahead and plug it into the USB. If I can, darn USB is getting plugged in the right way. There we go. Now you can see it is initializing, and this can take anywhere between 15 to 30 seconds to do. It may flash a couple of times. Your TV may even flash a couple of times. But here we go. We have the Wii U going, and I have some Mario Kart 8, obviously. And down below here, you can see it's actually showing the audio signal from the Wii U. And now what we want to do is come in here to settings, because there's actually quite a bit you can adjust in here. So as you can see, your first tab here is capture, and obviously the input device is the Wii U. Now, you can change this as they got a few different presets in here. Most of your modern stuff is in here. But let's say you want to capture from the component, or from S-Video, or composite. You'd want to select Other. And now you can change from HDMI, component, composite, S-Video, whichever you want. When the HDMI is connected, you can also switch between analog or the HDMI audio if you want to. And then you can change your color range for the HDMI, just a preferential thing. And down below, profile, that's your resolution. So you can change it. Mobile resolution, I'm assuming, is quite small. Standard would be whatever it's receiving from the whichever console. So if it's putting out a 240p signal, that's what it's going to get. If it's getting a 480p signal, that's what it'll get, 480i, whatever. So it'll detect that from the console. And then you have your 720 and 1080. So, and then you can adjust the quality with this slider here. Now down below you have your cropping. You can do none at all, or you can crop off the overscan. And if you know anything about LCDs, you can sometimes see the overscan with different consoles. Sometimes you can't. But if you're gaming on a CRT, you don't really see the overscan because it's cut off by the TV itself. So if you're seeing overscan, just click on overscan to crop it out. However, I noticed that when I was capturing footage for the original Xbox, when I was doing the Halo playthroughs recently, I was still getting a little bit of the overscan left over that I had to crop out in post. So just keep that in mind. Now, you can also convert standard definition to 640 by 480. And if you really want to, you can stretch 4:3 out to an ugly widescreen if you want to, make it look really disgusting. But now you can click on the picture tab and actually adjust some of your picture settings, which is kind of nice because I had to mess around with that a little bit with the Halo playthroughs because I noticed that it was quite dark. And you'll notice that it was the brightness and contrast is a little different on each one of them, and I'm still you're probably going to have to mess around with each console that you capture just to get it where you want it. Now if you click on your audio tab, you can change the gain in here if you really want to. That's something else I just take care of in post, so I don't bother with that. Profiles, you can add profiles here if you want to. Not something I've messed around with yet, but I'm sure there's some information online if you really want to get into that. And then advanced, this is something you'd only really want to change if your TV has a problem. As you can see, it says right here, only adjust if this value if your TV fades to black while connected to the Elgato. So if it doesn't, don't worry about that. So anyway, so we've got this selected to Wii U. It's capturing like it's supposed to. I'm actually just going to click cancel because that's what it was set to before. But alright, now you can see we got our video, we got our audio, so you can go ahead and click record. And it's going to just start recording this. You can see here that it's got your time going, shows you how much free space you have left on your hard drive. You can disable the preview if you want, you can mute the sound. Now this is obviously probably where you'd want to click if you wanted to capturing if you wanted to start capturing commentary. And then obviously if you had your live streaming set up to an account, you would click there to start streaming. So now if you want to stop recording, you can click here or hit your hotkey, which mine I've set to Control S, so it stops. Now I'll show you where it puts your video files when it's done, basically. So it's going to save them to videos by default, so it'll be in here. But I created a folder that's called Game Capture, and I told it to save them in there. But this is what you will normally see when you click on your videos folder. It will always save them in here, this EGC library. And you can actually, that's going to be one of the files. It's actually kind of convoluted how it structures its files. Usually I just go into here, and then it's going to have different dates about how many captures you do, so this is obviously the one we did. But here's the video file here. So that's basically where it stores everything. Pretty simple, guys. Anyhow, that's really all I have to go over here. I can't think of really anything else to cover, but if you guys have any questions, go ahead and leave them down below. I'll be happy to try to answer them. If you've got any suggestions for anybody else, or if you got something on another capture device that maybe you would think is useful to other people, go ahead and leave it in the comments down below. By no means am I being paid by Elgato to do this. I'm not trying to support them in any way. It's just a matter of, this is the capture device I picked. I'm pretty happy with it, and I think a lot of you would be too. So anyhow, guys, thanks for tuning in, and I will catch you with the next video.